Hi, good morning. Today is November 4th, 2025, and it is 12:13 p.m. U.S. Central Time. And my name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano, and I'm recording this video from my home located at the 2302 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas 77494. And this house is located right in front of uh, the house of a gentleman by the name Joel Gray, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Baxter International. And both our houses are about 300 feet away from Robert Mueller's house. And Robert Mueller, for people not familiar with the name, is a former FBI director. So he was the director of the FBI for many years ago. And all this context is important for the content I'm going to include in this demo. So today I have a series of, they're more like second order observations derived, some of them from the pipeline by ingesting the transcript of the previous demo. I mean, as a second order effect, right? And some of these are like, things that I observe, right? Or conclusions that I can draw from observation. So I just want to, but they are all related to the things that I described in the previous demo, right? Where I talked about the black Tesla, the infrared pulsating light transmission to Joel Gray's house, which ultimately led to the taking of my son, right, from his home, and subsequently being secreted for 50 days, kidnapped, basically. So, so I have a few things, right? But I think I saw something that might be important, right? But I think to really to really make justice to that observation, I think I should tell you how I saw it, because that's also, it's one example of how this network fails, right? Miserably. So they shoot themselves in the foot sometimes, right? And I think this is a good example of that, so I'm going to say it, right? So the first thing, right, that I want to talk about is that I'm getting the impression that the lawyers, you know how this network has different professions that they care about. And I talked about this and I went over which professions those are. I think I did that in a demo when I talk about the school districts, right? And why the children of the agents take certain professional paths. Like those are not random, they're designed. Right? Designed to achieve control of key professional circles in 5-10 years from now. Right? I mean, from the moment they enter college. But anyhow, one of those circles, of course, is the law profession. Right? And so obviously, right, there's a group of lawyers that are part of this network, and they're an important part of that, right, of the network. But it seems like, at least in the local, theater here, Morgan Heibner, Pickett, the Adams law firm, that circle, right? It seems like they're being kept in the dark now. And I have yet to ask the Venezuelan informant, right, what could be the reasoning behind doing this. But from what, I mean, I haven't talked to him, but about this. But from what I can see, right, it could be a way to get them to do things that they wouldn't do if they knew, right, the situation. So it seems like they're being deliberately kept in the dark. And I'm going to give you an example of that and how that led to another discovery. Well, I'm not sure if it's a discovery. I suspect it would be a discovery, right? But I think it would require an expert. It would require consulting an expert on this. And I'm not an expert in this field, so I can't tell. But anyhow, I'll tell you how I got there. So the reason why I say they're being kept in the dark is because I published yesterday, right, at 7 a.m. or 7:30, the results of the IEE, the Identify, Evoke, Expose experiment I ran in combination with the Venezuelan informant, right, at Kroger. And there should be footage that, authorities can check and see this woman doing the things that I described, right, in the video yesterday. So obviously, I mean, and after I recorded that video, I wrote a chapter and put it in the book. So this is already in the books that are printed in Amazon, right? Like if you buy a book in Amazon today, you will see this chapter about what they did yesterday, right? With these rules that when this woman brought the child and put the child in front of my face, and then a Venezuelan agent came and took a picture, right? Anyhow, so if the lawyers were aware that this information is already not only recorded in a video, but it's printed in a book, right? That is registered with the Library of Congress, they wouldn't be pushing for this, right? They would have stopped trying to pull off the rules, because by committing to the rules, they would be, it's like signing a confession, right? Like if everybody knows what you're doing and you go ahead and do it, I mean, but from what I can tell, they haven't given up, right? They're still trying to do it. So that means that the intelligence, let's call it department, right, of the network, did not tell the legal, let's call them legal department of the network, that the rules has been exposed. And I think there is a reason for that, right? I think the ultimate goal of the rules is to try to seize the recordings I have at the other home, right? Well, they think they're in the other home, right? So, but wherever they are, they're trying to seize them, right? Because they have the recordings of the agents intercepting the downlink and the Cuban agents and extracting the modem and all that, right? That ultimately will be linked to Robert Mueller, right? So they are trying to destroy that evidence. Kind of the same thing they were trying to do with the Cold Mobile a month ago, right? Trying to get it seized by Phil Denning. I mean, using Phil Denning. It's the same idea, but now it's with the house equipment, right? Instead of the Cold Mobile equipment. So it seems like they're so desperate that they did not tell the lawyers that the thing has been uncovered, right? In a way, right? It's kind of a gambit. I mean, if the lawyers go ahead and do it, right, and say that they managed to get the equipment seized, which is the goal, but at the end they're going to get in trouble, right? Because when it is reviewed, at some point, right, it will come to surface that this is already in a book before they did it, right? So they will get in trouble, but at that point it doesn't matter because the mission was successful, meaning getting the evidence destroyed, right? Even if the lawyers go to jail later, right? But I think, I mean, from my vantage point, this dynamic seems to me like I made a breakthrough. Why? Because I broke through the unity, right? Now they're not behaving as a collective; they're behaving as competitive. They're competing among each others to see who avoids going to jail, right? And that's create the opposite of unity, right? They are using their own teams. How do I say this? So the intelligence department is sacrificing the lawyers to save themselves, right? So I mean, this is the opposite of unity, right? So now they're not acting as a collective; they're acting as internal competitors, right? They're competing among each other, and one team is trying to get the other team in trouble, right? To save themselves. And I think the team that is doing that is the intelligence department of the network, right? Because the only people that would benefit from that evidence being destroyed would be Robert Mueller, because he has the modem in his backyard. And the other modem is at the Cuban's safe house that is 2 houses away from my home, right? At Valley Side Drive. So I don't see anybody else benefiting from that. I mean, from the lawyers going to jail, than Mueller, right? So anyhow, and it's interesting, right? Because let me tell you why I think that they keep pushing for that rules, right? There, because it seems like that's the only thing that they see that they can do, right? The reason I say that is because after I published that, right, yesterday, on both on a demo that I recorded and in the books, a series of strange things kept happening, right? So number one was in the afternoon, agent Michael Pretty, who lives, that's the supposedly employee of Citgo that Diosdado Cabello moved next to my home in 2020. And I've mentioned him more than 100 times, right? In the demos and in the book. And he, in that house, I have cameras outside my home to both monitor the perimeters, right, in case they break in again. And and I think that's the other thing I want to get, right? The recordings of the break-in, right? They're trying to get that seized because that's hard evidence, right? I'm talking about the break-in of August 11, right? Which is documented in the book, where Michael Pretty was involved, surely. Right? Was involved because he's recorded by the cameras. Anyhow, so in the house next door where Michael Pretty lives, you never see a face, right? You only see cars with tinted windows coming in and out, but you never see a face. There's, you wouldn't, unless like if there's an emergency, like, if I do something or say something in one of these videos that is too damning to Michael Pretty, then he will come outside to play ball with the kid. Things like that. I like to, which I think is a taint marker that I described before. But in general, right? Like I don't know, let's put a number to it to give an idea, right? In the 5 years that he's been next to my home, I may have seen his face in total in 5 years, maybe 6 times, right? It's never the case that they come out, right? And I said this before, this is by design, right? So in case they have to bring an Andres Mendez or Francisco Castillo into the home, you cannot quickly recognize if it's not him or not, right? So yeah, so yesterday what happened was in the afternoon, Sarah Pretty, right, the wife of Michael Pretty, she brought to the driveway a bunch of kids. I would say, I don't know, I didn't count them. I didn't watch the footage, but it was a group, right? Like, I don't know, maybe 10 kids. I don't know how many, right? And they started playing in front of in the driveway. But this never happens. Like in 5 years, I've never seen this happen before. It happened yesterday, right? They started basically playing in front of the camera, right? The cameras that I have outside of my home. And I think it's kind of, to fabricate evidence, right? To fabricate a narrative that I have recordings of children, right? Like the same thing that I discussed in the demo yesterday. Right? Of course, when that happened, right, I'm not going to give them any opening. I dismounted the camera, right? The camera is gone. There's no camera now. But now, there's another thing that happened. And I think this was Morgan Hyper. And I described before, let me tell you what happened, right? So my former partner sends me a video of our son at the preschool at that event yesterday that I did not go to the event because I know what they're trying to do, right? So I'm not going to put myself in a situation where it would facilitate it for them, right? So I didn't go to the event. The event was a parade, a Halloween parade, supposedly, where the kids were going to walk outside, right, of the school, and the parents could watch them and take pictures and stuff. But I didn't go because, because what I discussed yesterday, right? So, which if you think about it, right, like the level of harassment, legal harassment using the state is such that I have to not go see my son at the preschool because I know they're going to create a pretext to put me in jail, right? That is a profound thing that I'm saying. So that level of harassment using the state, the state organizations like the police and the courts and etc. Right? But anyhow, I trust that there will be justice, right? So anyhow, I didn't go to the event, right? But then, and I didn't go to the event, and that was it. Like we didn't talk about anything else, right? About the event. Me and my former partner. In the afternoon, she sends me, without me asking her anything, she sends me 2 videos of the event. But I think this was really Morgan Heimer. And I'm going to give you more details what I think this is Morgan Heimer doing this, right? It's not my former partner. I mean, it's her phone. The message is coming from her phone, but it's really Morgan Heimer. And I described this technology before that they use, right? To intercept messages and to impersonate the phones of other people. to catfish everybody, right? Like there's a demo specific about this topic and observations on how I figured this out, right? So these are not guessing, right? Like I know what I mean, I know it's not her, right? What I'm guessing is that it's Morgenheimer. Maybe it's not Morgenheimer. Maybe it's Tina Simon, right? Maybe somebody else, but it's not. I know this is not coming from her. But anyhow, so this person, whoever this person is that is impersonating her, sent me 2 videos of the supposedly of the preschool. And I started watching the video, and my son is not even visible in the video. It's all the sons of the agents, right, that have the kids in the same preschool. So I deleted the videos and I told her, listen, if can you send me a photo of that? It's only Marcelo, like no other kids, please. I'm not interested in watching the kids of the spies. Like that doesn't. I just want to see my son. So I said that, and then she didn't say anything. Right? Like an hour passed, and then she tells me over text messages, right? But I think it's Morgenheimer. I don't think it's, and I think it's Morgenheimer because she's desperate or because she sees the possibility that she might go to jail, right? So she is trying to do the unthinkable to avoid that. So, so like an hour passes, and then she proactively, I didn't ask her to do this, she proactively tells me, I extracted a few frames from the video and I'm sending them to you. And in the first frame, I could see my son, right? It was Marcelo alone. But the other 2 frames was Marcelo, but prominently displayed in the frames, more than Marcelo, were 2 children that are not Marcelo, right? When I see the thing, I tell her, right? Like, I already told you to not send me any photos that contain any other children than my son. Like I had to, like, you know, I wasn't rude, but like I was more firm, right, than the previous time. I was less friendly in a way, right? I was like more firm on, you know, don't send me anything if it contains any other children. And then her response was a little bit aggressive. She said, "But I think this is Morgenheim, right? I know my former partners, like this is not the way she talks." But anyhow, all right. So she said, well, then stop asking me for photos, like implying that I'm always asking her for photos of children. Like, and I said, listen, I did not ask you for any photo. You proactively sent me this, and you extracted those frames, despite I already told you to not send me anything that contained any other children. So, but this is Morgenheimer, right? Trying to create that evidence. I fabricate that evidence for a future attack, legal attack, right? Related to, inappropriate interest in children. I think is what she wants to allege, right? So anyhow, I say that, right, and then she replied, well, oh no, and then I told her, listen, I told her, right, but I know this is, I mean, because I know it's Morgenheimer. I told her, listen, I already know, my informant already told me about what you're planning to do with, you know, the police and to allege that and in fact, I said in the message, I already know that Morgenheimer and Pickett are plotting to make a claim that I have photos of children from the school. And then I told her, listen, this is already known, it's already published, this is not going to work. You know, move on from this tactic. But I'm talking to Morgenheimer, right, when I write this. Although it's the phone number of my former partner, but I know Morgenheimer is the one reading this, or Pickett. Right? And then the reply was, what are you talking about? I don't understand anything. Like, what you know, like pretending that I'm crazy, right? And then I sent her the link of the video yesterday. So she sees that this is already known, right? But this whole dynamic tells me that she didn't know, right? She didn't know that I had created that. I mean, I'm talking about Morgenheimer. She didn't know, or Pickett, that they don't know that I created that video yesterday. Right? They had no idea. After I sent that message with a link to the video, no more replies. Like there was no more reply, nothing more about children, no more photos of children. Like the thing stopped, right? But that tells me that they are completely unaware of that video yesterday. And the reason is because the intelligence department of the network decided not to tell them. Right? So they would keep pushing that. So it's amazing, right? You know what people do when they want to survive. Um, but yeah, so the takeaway for me is that I made a huge breakthrough, because now they're behaving as, you know, a smaller criminal cells instead of a big criminal network, right? Which is good for me, right? If I can defeat them when they were working as a unit, imagine what I will do when they're working separately, right? Um, and it's not because I'm smarter than them; it's because I have the GeoIndex, right? And I have the technology to decode it. That's, you know, the data that Diosdado Cabello gave me, right, by harassment. Speaking of which, in my last demo, I made an offer of 1% of whatever I recover, if anybody finds me or gets me a copy of the mysterious Index 7 document that Morgan Heibner is hiding. But I needed to be stamped, of course, right? So it's, you know, so it serves my purposes. But I feel like I did not, you know, in my offer, I wasn't, I didn't make justice to the offer, like, because I think the offer is attractive. In case I'm saying this, in case, you know, any of my informants have a way to get this document, so you see the potential upside here, right? So I said, you know, whoever loses the war will pay for the war, implying, you know, I may be able to recover money from them, and, you know, I'll share that with whoever gets me this document. But also, importantly, there is a reward offered by the DEA for people in the Cartel de los Soles, and I reported all of them, and I applied for the reward. And I mean, I imagine because of the amount of data that Diosdado Cabello gave me, right? If I succeed here, I will get that. I mean, I should, right? If those rewards are worth anything, right? Like if those posters are worth anything, I should get them, right? So my offer includes that, right? And it's more than $100 million in rewards that the DA is offering for this group of, I think it's like 9 individuals, right? If you combine the rewards, it's like $100 million. So, you know, my 1% offer also includes anything that I recover from that avenue, right? So, you know, we're talking about potentially millions of dollars, is what I'm trying to say, for one document. Okay. So yeah, so this part, basically the lawyers are in the dark, right? They are operating in the dark by design from the intelligence department. But now this is one of those things that they do that then they shoot themselves in the foot. I'm talking about the rules with Michael Pretty bringing the kids to the driveway, right, to fabricate evidence. Because that led me to remove the camera, right, immediately. When I removed the camera, what I did, I mounted it inside of the house, looking to the streets. Like, I'm not, you know, recording anything related to Michael Pretty. I'm recording the front of my house, but it's mounted inside of the house, right, from a window. And remember, and this is kind of important, like this camera, as I said before, is a license plate reader. It's the same camera that I used to record the black Tesla transmitting infrared lights to Joel Gray's house on March 27, 2025 at 8:18 p.m. It's the same camera. And this is an infrared camera, right? A specialized infrared camera to read license plates. So obviously this is, if what I'm trying to say, right? If assume for a second, right, that a person has, I'm not saying, don't talk about me, but imagine that a person has an inappropriate interest in recording children, right? They would not use an infrared camera to record children, because this is a camera to read license plates, not to record, you know, children or record humans, right? Like the quality of the image for humans, it's terrible, because this thing is tuned to record images of license plates, right, with reflective material and special characteristics. So I mean, that on itself, right, shows that the thing is a bad faith claim, right, what they're planning to make. Anyhow, so I take the license plate reader and I mount it inside of the home facing the street. As I do this, the setup doesn't work, right? When I turn on the system, I start to calibrate the camera, no image. it's a black, it's a white square. All I see is a white square. I thought, my initial thought was, well, maybe I damaged the camera, right, on mounting it. I go and move the camera and point it towards the inside of the house. I see image. I go and mount it again towards the street, white square. I don't see anything. It occurred to me, because this is a license plate reader, it has infrared LEDs all around the dial, or the face of the camera, right? It's a circle of LEDs, of infrared LEDs that are always on. So by putting it behind a window, what is happening, the reason why I see the white square is because the infrared light reflects on the window and comes back towards the camera, and it blinds the camera. So the camera is getting blinded by itself by the infrared LEDs that it has, right? Because they're reflecting, bouncing back on the window. Now, this is a eureka moment for me, because this means, and what I'm going to say, again, I'm not an expert in this field. I need to consult an expert, okay? And I will do that via one of the informants. But I know what I'm going to say depends on many factors, even the temperature of the room, the angle of the light, right? Like the angle in which the light is hitting the window, the material of the window, the thick. I know there's dozens of factors, right, that affect the reflection coefficient of that particular frequency of IR on the window, right? But the thought is, if this infrared light is bouncing in this window at 100% efficiency, right? Like me, because the camera is getting blind. Like I cannot see anything outside. It means that all the IR nothing is going through. Everything is coming back, right? How is it possible that in that video of the black Tesla sending signals, pulsating IR to Joel's great house, the light goes through the windshield? Because you can see the pulsating light on the infrared camera, and the device is mounted behind the windshield. So this means that this infrared light that this Tesla has to transmit in this way is able to go through that windshield without bouncing back and blinding the camera. Because otherwise they wouldn't have mounted it there, right? It couldn't communicate if it bounces back. If you think about it, right, this has deep implications, because it means, I mean, there's many things that could have happened here, right? Maybe they changed the windshield at the Great Wall Lodge to make this possible, right? For a windshield that would allow the IR light to go through in this way. It's possible. Maybe this is a special windshield that was designed for this, right? But maybe all the Teslas have this windshield designed this way, right? It could be something in the supply chain of Tesla. I don't know the answer, right? But seeing with my own camera that the IR light doesn't seem to like glass, to the point that all I see is a white square in the image. And contrasting that with this perfect communication channel on the Tesla. And I'm going to share the screen, because I'm talking about this, right? I'm looking at the video, but I realize you are not looking at it. So let me share the screen. Just one second. Right. So you can see the light pulsating right here, right? So you see that light is able to go through that windshield. It doesn't have the same problem that I'm seeing with my camera, right? With my license plate reader camera. And the frequency, you can argue, well, maybe it's a different frequency, but I mean, it cannot be that different, because this is the same camera that I'm describing. So, this camera has a certain sensitivity band to certain frequencies of infrared light that obviously this light of the Tesla is within that band because it was recorded on March 17, right? And is in the same band. It has to have the LEDs that the camera contains that are that when I try to put the camera behind a window, they reflect back and blind the camera. So the frequencies cannot be that different. That different is what I'm trying to say, right? They have to be at least in the same band. And that device in the black Tesla is able to go through the windshield, but the LEDs on my camera are not able to go through a regular window of a house. So that tells me that that windshield is special. Right? Well, suggests to me that it's special. It has special characteristics. Now, the question is whether they replaced it at the Great Wolf Lodge or whether this is a standard issue in all Teslas, which would be a more dangerous, a more significant implication, right? If that was the case. But, this is another example on when this observation would not have been possible if Morgan Heibner wouldn't have kept pushing the narrative with the thing with the kids, right? And sending Michael Pretty to put kids in the driveway to create a pretext to go to the police and try to get the recordings of my camera seized, right? So it's another example of them shooting themselves in the foot, right? Yeah, but it's a mystery to me. How is that infrared light of that Tesla able to go through that windshield? Seeing how the reflection coefficient of the other LED that is in the camera is basically 100%, right? Nothing goes through on a regular window, right? And I have to tell you, I tried different angles. Like I put it like, parallel to the window. I tried different things. I could not get the IR to go through the window. Like it would always bounce back and it would always completely blind the camera. So I don't know. It's something that I have to ask somebody who works in optics, that works with optical systems, right? They must know the answer to this. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to another observation. It's about sorry. It's about the utility poles, right? Where they're having Katie that I talked about in the previous demo. That they probably have these modems and they use those as communication points. So the observation is the following: it seems like this is, like I'm collecting more and more data, right? Via the pipelines and also doing drive-bys and collecting imagery, right? And it seems like this extends beyond center point and end store, right? There are several of these. So basically, the pattern is there are in the public areas next to the roads, right, of the major roads in Katy, and next to some neighborhoods, there are areas that are close by a fence, right, where inside that area there is utility equipment, not necessarily from an electro company, from an energy company, right? Like for example, there are several of these enclosures that are controlled by Inframark. But what they all have in common is that these power lines that eventually get to the cellular antennas pass through these utility boxes. And they're always next to an important network hub. It could be a church or it could be a neighborhood, right? Like this Mills Pointe in Westheimer Road. The other day I said I would find the name. The name of the neighborhood is Mills Pointe with E at the end. So let me show you. Yes, so this neighbor over here, right? So you can see the buffer line, right? The buffer zone, sorry, that they have, right? It's huge. And you see the reason I'm mentioning this is because in that previous demo, I mentioned that Pointe with E at the end seems to be a network marker related to forward positions, right? And this neighborhood is located less than 500 feet away from the OPEC plus religious antenna of What is the name of the church? Let me see. Oh, I'm on the other direction. Okay. Yeah, the South Stone Church, right? But there's something strange here. Oh, this is really weird. Huh. I have to think about this a little bit more. I don't want to say any conclusions about this without really thinking about it. But it is strange to me that there's two roads called Pecan Lane next to each other, but they're not the same road. I mean, you know, when I see these things, right, they seem to be designed to confuse, right? I mean, look at, so this Pecan Lane is where the TL Global, the company that says that applied knowledge is power, right, is located. So you see TL Global here, and you see, and this is a financial supercluster. We talked about this before, right? And the street is called Pecan Lane. And then next to the Mills Point neighborhood, there's another Pecan Lane. Is the spelling the same? Yeah, it's the same spelling. But it's not the same road because, well, if it was a circle, right? But then it would be called circle, not lane. It would be Pecan Circle. So there's these two Pecan lanes. There are two different streets, but they have the same name and they're next to each other. This is weird. And also, this is a mysterious road that has the private property sign, but doesn't seem to be private property. It seems to be a public road, right? It's also called Pecan Lane. I don't know. I have to think about this a little bit more. But anyhow, the conversation of this Mills Point comes from the fact that point is a prominence marker, name marker related to forward positions in this network. Anyhow, here on the other side of Pecan Lane, there is this utility thing. It's covered by these trees, so you cannot really see it. You see these trees over here, but the address is 1220 Green Bush Road. And this is what they look like at least in Katy, right? So it's an enclosed area, right? And it has a bunch of no trespassing danger, like if you get inside of that thing, you're crazy, right? Look how many danger no trespassing signs it has, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? In just a small space. And it says Fort Bend County MUD 185 Leaf Station, right? And it says high voltage. So this has high voltage electricity equipment. And this is located next to that supernode. So the reason I'm mentioning this specific one is because this one increased the score. Remember how in the last session I mentioned that I created a re-ranking signal based on the proximity to the OPEC plus religious cellular towers, right? That metric. I also created a metric related to the proximity of a utility easement like this, right? Detected on imagery of Google Maps and Google Earth. And this is right next to the financial supercluster of TL Global, right? TL Global is right here. So now TL Global has two of these metrics affecting its re-rank score. One is this utility facility that is hidden behind these trees, underneath these trees, and the second one is the one related to the antenna and the church, right? So this neighborhood over here, it's a very, very important place, right? And I have not been able to get in because it's gated, right? But I'm gonna see if there's like a house for sale or something that I can go look at, right? That maybe, right? Maybe they make that mistake. But I'm curious to see, what is inside of that thing that they're guarding so much, right? With, a charge and two of these power facilities, right? So that's super interesting. But the more general comment is that it seems like Inframark is part of this because there are many of these Inframark facilities. But let me give you another one that is super important. So next to that Kroger, when there's been multiple incidents, right? The Kroger that is located on Spring Green and FM 1093, right? So behind this Kroger, this Kroger has the electricity utility poles running behind it, right? The same observation as the HEV that is close by. So you cannot see it in this image, I think. Oh yeah, you can see it, right? So this is the pole right here, and this is the line. You can even see the line. It's a huge electricity line. So all these houses, right, are very important, the ones that are on the back of the Kroger. And it has this complex next to it, apartment complex that is called Montage at Cinco Ranch Apartments. This is a hugely important surveillance node, right? And they specifically use this node in conjunction with Penelope Suarez when they were working to steal the technology of key opinion leaders, right? This was an important part of that. I mean, this neighborhood, right? And this neighborhood, right outside of the neighborhood of the exit, it has this utility facility, exactly the one like the one I'm describing on the near the super node of TL Global, right? And you see, it's the same thing, right? And this one I know is controlled by Inframark because I drove over there and I took a picture of the door, and it has a sign that says Inframark. Let me see if it's visible at all. Yeah, I think it's this one on the left. It says Inframark. I have a high resolution photo of it. All right. The other thing that is interesting is that some of these facilities have banking level security cameras, which is, it's just weird, right? I understand that this equipment is delicate, but why watch it with, bulletproof cameras? It seems odd. And there's one that has these characteristics that is next to a school. And I'm gonna show you what it is. So let's go again to Mills Point. So, right. So here's the church, right? The Southstone Church that we talked about before. And in the other side of this Katy Fleewellen road, there is an utility area exactly like the one I'm describing. Is this one, right? So this one has in this corner, I'm going to give you the coordinates of the camera. It's more or less latitude 29.76, 121, longitude minus 95.82752. More or less at that point, it has mounted on a pole, on the top pole, a high end, top of the line security camera that looks like a bank security camera. It's, has the bulletproof enclosure and everything. Well, I don't know if it's bulletproof. I didn't shoot at it, but it looks that way. It looks like a bank security camera. But not all of these utility easements, or I don't know what they're called, right? Utility facilities have these cameras. There's something special about this one that makes it have that camera. And I, of course, wonder what that could be. Right? What is so special about this one that requires a security camera of that level? Also, how is that camera communicating? Like, where is that video feed going to? That's an important question. The reasoning here is that, assume for a second, right, that there is a modem in here, right? Imagine, right? Just for the sake of the argument, let's imagine that they put a modem, one of these mysterious magical modems, in this facility. The line of the modem might be secure, but the line of the camera is not, right? And I know that because of the bandwidth requirements of the camera. Like, it's just the camera is probably going over an unsecure line, and that on itself might be a giveaway, right? So maybe that could be a technical mistake, right? Secure, like installing a secure communication channel, but then putting an insecure communication channel to monitor the secure communication channel. But the insecure channel gives it away, right? Now, what I see different about this one is that it's next to the school and next to the church, right? Two important network nodes. So maybe that's why this is more sensitive than the others, right? And I'm just mentioning this because they could be ideas for signals for detection, right? So if you find programmatically, I'm talking to potential engineers, right, that want to develop signals to detect this thing around the globe. One way to do it would be try to find utility facilities like this that are less than 500 feet away from a school and from a church, right? And see if they have a camera. I don't know, it's an idea, right? Sometimes these ideas do work. Now, I want to talk about something, it's just a thought that I had, right? Random thought about this video, right, of March 27, which I didn't understand at the time how important of a piece of evidence this is, right? Because I didn't know that the person in front of my house was Joel Gray, who is the chief financial officer of Baxter. Now, there's a few things to unpack here, right, that I didn't say in the previous demo. And they're important to say. It's important that I say them, right? One is that, remember, a key player in all this campaign, even before I captured the GeoIndex, like years before, since 2012, at least 2005, right? The first time I saw the name Briscoe, right? Is Briscoe an internet brands? But more recently, on 2016 onwards, because he's the CEO of WebMD. And WebMD has done several different types of attacks against my startup company, KOL Health, right? Via Lawson Booth, for example. Right? I'm saying all this because, although I didn't say it explicitly in the last video, Baxter, it's a huge client of WebMD. WebMD is arguably the largest medical or health tech company in the world, right? If you look at it by ad revenue, for example. So there is a relationship between Baxter and WebMD, and this is visible even online. There are several articles in multiple prominent news outlets that mention in the same article Baxter and WebMD. So the fact that Briscoe has been targeting my startups in not only in healthcare, but even before I got into the healthcare space, right, for decades, and now the CFO of a major international corporation that it's a huge client of Briscoe's companies is the one that owns the house that this black Tesla is transmitting to, right? So, I mean, 2 and 2 together, right? But the other thing that I did not explicitly say, and I think it's important to say, is that, think about it, right? What are the chances that I was able to capture this video, right? What are the chances that I was able to get this on video, right? Think about the amount of coincidence that had to happen for this video to be able to exist, right? I didn't park that car there, but my former partner did, right? And I asked her to park it there because previous incidents that happened with a Chinese safe house next door, right? And I had this license plate reader installed in behind the mailbox, precisely positioned in this angle since months ago, right? And Phil Denning had already sued me because of that camera, right? Because I put that camera in the mailbox. I guess what I'm trying to say, right? I look at the angle of the camera, like the probability of me capturing that video is infinitely small. They could have not foreseen that the camera would see this light, right? I mean, it's a tremendous chain of coincidences that had to happen for this video to even exist. But it exists, okay? And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it exists because I did not remove the license plate reader from behind the mailbox. Now, in one of the demos before, I mentioned that Phil Denning and the HOA of Lake Point Estates have been harassing me with legal action, right? Using the law firm. Let me tell you the name of the law firm. This one is Roberts, Markel, Weinberg, Butler, Haley, PC, right? So Phil Denning and the HOA of Lake Point Estates sued me to my company, which is the company. My company is the owner of this house. Like, I don't own it personally. The company owns this house. So they sued the house, basically, because I had those license plate readers installed behind my mailbox, right? And in one of the demos, I said that the things that they were suing me for in that lawsuit, which was that, and also the no trespassing properties, private property sign that I had in the law, right? A small sign. In fact, I think I have a sign like that here, right? So this is the sign that they were suing me for. You can compare the size to the size of my face. This is a small sign by any standards. And they were threatening me with fines for $300 per day, right? So $300 per day for each day that I had the sign outside. So if you do the math, right? So we're talking about $9,000 per month per sign, and I have two signs, right? So they were threatening with fines of in the order of $18,000 per month. You know, $9,000 for each sign, and also for the cameras, it was another $300 for each camera. So they were threatening me with $30,000 in fines per month, like $300,000 in fines. Right? I don't know, crazy harassment. This is legal harassment for having a sign that asserts my right to private property, which is a constitutionally protected right. But I'm telling you all this because in one of the videos I made a comment and I said something to the effect that the things that they were suing me for in that lawsuit weren't random. Like, those were things that this network needed to be removed so they can work, right? So they could do what they do, right? Which is steal technology and harass targets, right? But they couldn't do it freely because I had the cameras and I had the no trespassing sign. If they trespass, I call the police, right? Because there's a sign. If they trespass and I have proof that they saw the sign, I can call the police, right? And file a police. I should be able to file a police report, which in practice is not true, right? Because this happened with Deputy Walker. I called 911, he came, but he refused to file the police report because he was working for Phil Denning and Robert Mueller, right? And Morgan Heibner, because Morgan Heibner was the person that sent that process server to trespass on April 16th. That's the incident I'm talking about. But anyhow, I guess the point I want to convey is that I think this video is a crucial piece of evidence that will be impactful, not for me, but in general, right? Like, this piece of evidence might help bring a big part of this network to justice, right? And the point I'm trying to convey is that if I had complied to Phil Denning's demands, this video would not exist. Right? If I had removed the cameras from behind the mailbox, this video would never exist, would have never existed, because the camera would not be there, right? Obviously, right? Or in another instance, after I banned the Tesla from the garage, Phil Denning started harassing me, ordering me to put the car in the garage. Of course, because he needed the car to be in the garage so the car could work as a gateway point to the Chinese safe house, right? So I guess, right, the point I'm trying to make is that all these enforcement of rules by selective, because he doesn't enforce the rules in the case of Robert Mueller's secret model, right, in the backyard. But this selective enforcement goes beyond harassment. It's really a way to force me to set up my own property in a way that makes the job of Diosdado Cabello easier, right? That's the only explanation. Like, because the things he's asking me to do are things that would preclude me from gathering evidence, right? Or that would make it easier for the Chinese to extract data from the house. Like when the time that he ordered me in writing to put the cars inside of the garage. Like he didn't want to see any cars in the driveway, right? And I have a recording of him yelling at me because of this, right? Or the removal of the camera. Like if I had removed the cameras, there would be no evidence against Joel Gray and by extension, Robert Mueller and Bob Briscoe. Right? So I guess, right, what I'm trying to say is that Phil Denning's contribution, right, to the kidnapping of my son is higher than it might seem on the, at first glance. If you really see the things that he was targeting, right? The car in the garage, the cameras behind the mailbox, and the no trespassing property sign. So I think it's important to know that. So with that, I'm going to close this quick demo, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.